Recent headlines have celebrated the finding of a 5,000-year-old tavern in Iraq, complete with oven, fridge, food, and evidence of beer drinking. But is that the whole story? Nah, not even close. That would be like saying that Star Wars is a story of a young man with a droid and an old man with a beard walking into a bar and having a quiet drink. The end. Am I saying that the tavern found in ancient Iraq was like the cantina in Mos Eisley spaceport on Tatooine? No. Am I saying that this tavern is a gateway to a whole other world of discovery, of ancient great cities, of trade, alien language and culture, and, dare I say it, empire wars? Oh yes. Well, I think it's fair to say that what has drawn people into this, and us of course, and as indicated by the thumbnail to this piece, it's the idea of pub life, or there being a tavern in ancient Iraq or Sumer that has drawn people in. I know there was stuff earlier in the year, or was it last year, about them having discovered a fast food outlet in ancient Pompeii.
Absolutely.
These kinds of things always help to make it human. But this has been, for us, a bit of a, and we think it probably should be for other folk as well, a bit of a gateway to something else. I mean, I'll ask you, Rupert, what is it, that you find most exciting about this discovery, and what it, is a gateway to?
It's, for me, it's a really important point, that we look at all the aspects of prehistory generally that remain, and we have the tomb of a pharaoh, we have records of kings going back thousands of years. In Western Europe and going into Britain, we've got the tombs of the elites and all that. Hardly any signs of the ordinary people. So when you get something like this, excavations of an entire city, in the middle of which they find a tavern, with evidence for just people doing what people like to do, going out for a drink or going out for a meal. It's just, as soon as you put people being people into the archaeological record, then that for me just takes it into somewhere far more exciting.
We'll get into the detail, of what has been revealed about that has them convinced that this is actually at least an open-air restaurant or a tavern or something like, not quite the cantina on Mos Eisley, all right, just before we go any further, all right, but I think
you never know.
It's a fair exercise in picturing it somehow, because the climate's right, and I wanted to get the idea of the bustle. Hustle and bustle, this is the word city is often bandied about, when it comes to ancient stuff. But here, this is where it can safely be applied. These, around about, and we're talking about the city of Lagash, alongside the city of Uruk, Akkad, Kish, just to name but a few in the Tigris-Euphrates delta there. But in these cases, we are talking about cities, and genuinely the earliest cities or city-states. They are almost recognizable as cities as we would know them, not like places like Catalhoyuk, much earlier, of course, Catalhoyuk, but cannot safely be called a city in the same kind of way. They're large settlements, Göbekli Tepe or places like that, going even further back. These seem to be the first genuine cities. And just to get an idea of scale, the excavated area for this project is, 3 miles? No, I'll backtrack on that. That's not the excavated area.
Hectares, isn't it?
But the
600
area,
hectares.
Yeah, the area, the tell under which this city is 3 miles by 1 mile.
Yeah.
Obviously, that is not all excavated. They have to do sort of keyhole surgery in cases like this, even though it's been quite extensive. But I mean, that is a pretty large city by any standards, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Yes, when you look at the scale of excavation, as you said, it's keyhole surgery. But what they've found in the keyhole surgery is absolutely staggering.
Yeah.
What 9 levels of dwellings, of excavations, 9 levels. It's just.
And I think,
and speaking for myself, I had never heard of any of this really. The names that come pass you by, and I'd never really taken any notice. And then you realise quite how colossal this is.
Yeah. And to be fair, these places will be in the common parlance of people that have studied these kinds of areas.
Sure.
And hands up, it's not an area of study that we've gone into. It's just that this piece of archaeology has sort of taken us in there, and then we've found ourselves in a whole new world of known stuff because we're talking about history. We're the prehistory guys.
I think that's actually a really important
prehistory guys.
But it's a really important point to make, and it's one we've talked about it a few times. But the fact that there is this fuzzy hinterland, this crossover between prehistory and history, and the fact that you could potentially join dots between the deep mysteries of the deep past with the recorded history of the not quite so distant past. If we can learn a little bit more of the prehistory from these beginnings of history, it's just so evocative.
It's
really
funny
is.
You should say that it comes on that cusp between the fuzzy things of prehistory and history, even in their own texts. And I'm thinking about the major known text from the area. I don't know which city it was found in. But I think it was Akkad. I don't know. Could be Uruk. And that is the list of kings. The further back in time they go, their kings become fantastical and mythical, with reigns lasting tens of thousands of years and things like that, and them having superpowers. And the more it gets up to their date, the more real they get about what they were doing and how old they were and how long they actually reigned for. So archaeologists and researchers tend to do away with relying on the earlier mentions of the kings, but for the later kings, the archaeological support is there to say, they're talking about somebody that really lived, as opposed to this fantastical creature that ruled them, beyond where memory stretches.
But where are we going to go? I mean, I think the thing about this is that whilst it was the tavern, and there's still a lot to be said about that, but whilst it was the tavern that brought us into this, that's something that is that has an impact on everything else that we know about people in prehistory. Is in fact, this is from the excavators' website, but they say that Lagash controlled a fertile countryside. So it's desert now, but it certainly wasn't back then. Consisting of multiple ecological zones. Additionally, its location until the end of the 3rd millennium at the head of the Gulf allowed it to fully engage with regional trade networks, which brought in metal ores, hardwoods, precious stones, and other materials and products unavailable in the southern alluvium. Now, so it does tell you a lot about this. Really is a bustling, you said that word, bustling city, full of trade and people doing what people do in cities. It's just huge.
Metal workers, pottery makers, and of course the service industry.
Yes.
Talking of which, of the service industry, do you know what? None of the reports in the media quite evoke this, as well as this account just directly from the dig itself. It's just a report from events in Trench 3 of the Lagash project, and I'm just going to read it right now. So it says the earliest phase so far uncovered, dating to the late Early Dynastic Period 1 comprises part of the same building excavated during the spring season immediately to the west. 7 rooms have been identified in the extension, including an open cooking space adjacent to a massive brick oven. A smaller rectangular room on the western side, opening directly onto a courtyard that was excavated in the spring, yielded some of the most exciting finds from Trench 3 this season. On the plaster floor of this room were hundreds of ceramic bowls and beakers that seemed to have fallen from shelves and benches along the eastern wall, many with their original content, food and drink, with plentiful animal bones and organic residue still in situ. In the southeastern corner of the same room was a large circular installation which, upon inspection, proved to consist of the reused bottoms of 2 large jars, carefully cut and placed one inside the other, with the space between them packed with pottery sherds. This double ceramic feature appears to have been a cooling device for the storage of beverages. Taken together, the massive oven, ancient refrigeration system, courtyard with benches, and large quantity of ready-to-eat food in conical beakers and bowls suggest that the building in Trench 3 was a public eatery serving the local neighbourhood in the late Early Dynastic 1 period. Like Trenches 2 and 6, Trench 3 appears to have become a site for pottery production during the Early Dynastic 3A, as indicated by the lower proportions of the 2 kilns located at the highest elevations within the trench. That sort of says it most directly of all the reports I've heard. Now, that started to get out of our kilter because we're talking about the later, the division of the early dynastic period, and we really don't want to get into that because it would just take us off into the realms. Dear people, I suggest you research the whole of the period of the...
Well, we can just toss a ballpark, can't we?
Yeah.
I mean, if we're saying 5,000 years ago, it's a good enough ballpark figure, I think.
Yeah, 2009 to 2003, thereabouts is the sort of pocket we're looking at. But you said very early on, Rupert, about the 9 levels they are, and what they're looking at. And what I take from other parts of the report of the Lagash project is a very particular technique of micro stratification. Stratigraphic, you know what I mean. It's being as being an excavation technique that takes things down millimeter by millimeter, rather than choosing particular squares and going deep on those. It seems to have been going down gradually. So they've got a real sense of that stratification, and that may be why we get these. They're able to distinguish these 9 levels in this case. I don't know what the 9 levels, what time period it stretches over. I presume all of the existence of Lagash.
My interpretation of it was that it was that full history, but as you say, we need to read more ourselves. It's we've opened a bit of a Pandora's box here, haven't we?
And the other thing you stated at the beginning, which is quite right, is that this investigation, this dig, is not concentrated on finding out about the lives and kings and priests and queens and so on and so forth. Their stated objective is to look at how ordinary people were living at the time, around about 2,500 years ago. Which is when on Salisbury Plain they were dragging
you don't
Sarsen
mean years ago, do you?
No, 2,500 BC. I mean 4,500 years ago, which is coincidentally when people were dragging Sarsen stones across Salisbury Plain to build Stonehenge. Just so you know. Yeah. And the pyramids were going up, stuff was going on, wasn't it?
It's something else that is so evocative with an excavation like this. I'll read you another bit here. This is from Area C. Now, there's a diagram of the city as a whole, and it shows you the small areas that have been excavated. But Area C, it says this complex contained a large number of seal impressions and tablets. In level 1B, seal impressions and tablets signal activity during the reigns of Eonatum. I'm not going to go into the kings and queens, blah, blah.
Because you can't pronounce them, I know.
Just red herrings. But this complex contained a large number of seal impressions and tablets. In their preliminary report, the excavators suggested that this complex may have had an administrative function. Dr. Zainab Barouni later analysed the structure for her dissertation. She concluded that the complex may have been a craft workshop with different sectors devoted to metalworking, wool processing, reed working, and possibly scribal education. It's just another aspect of, you've got this vast, sprawling city where you've got everything from all aspects of people's working lives and all aspects of people's leisure time and just being people time. It's just such a gloriously evocative
and all couched,
place.
If you take reports from other parts of the dig, where they haven't perhaps got such strong indications of craft going on, but there's simple evocations of streets with narrow alleyways leading off in a higgledy-piggledy fashion. You can we've all been in cities where that occurs, and towns where they become labyrinthine, shall we say? Very evocative. I don't want to belabor the Star Wars thing, just going on to another point. But we've got all these city states. Now, they were all in competition with each other at the time. Sometimes they formed alliances, and sometimes they were, hammer and tongues. They had armies, as depicted in some of the friezes, which are magnificent. Fully armed, speared serried ranks of soldiers going to war with each other. And these cities, 30, 40 miles apart from each other, each having reign over a certain amount of land around them by which they persisted. So this period, is not exactly peaceful. I should think it's sort of interspersed with truces and all the rest of it. But there's quite a lot going on in that aspect until we get what is known as the First Empire occurring, when Sargon of Akkad from up north in the region decides, oh no, we're going to all be one under me. That period ends, and then you've got the Akkadian.
Another despot rises.
But it's I wouldn't be at all surprised if Lucas hadn't got some of inspiration for.
Maybe he did.
From these stories. But, I don't know.
Do you know there's another little aspect. I say little, just one of those details that you read it and you carry on reading without actually registering the full import of it, and that's. Again, from the excavator's site, where they're giving some of the history, it says during antiquity, the city of Lagash was one of three major cities: Gursu, Lagash, and Nijin. And the thing is, all three cities lay on the going to Nijin Canal, the main watercourse through the city-state.
Yeah.
It's a canal.
Yeah.
They built a canal. Now, if you've got a canal going through a city-state, now you then look at this thing and think, well, over what period of time? And okay, when you get reading right into the full histories, you can see over what period of time, but it's just seeing that these three cities are serviced by a single canal, so you can trade between all of them.
Yeah.
It's just... It's
very, amazing.
Very big.
Yeah, well, that's the nice thing about this. Most people's introduction or way into the Sumerian city-states and the Akkadian Empire is through the kings, queens, and the religious aspects, and of course the history itself, which is governed by the kings themselves and the elites. Most ways in is through that end, the top end, if you like. This is through the bottom end, through what people actually are doing. I'm sort of pretty sure that we've exhausted as much as we can say about this, because, as you know, we've come up against our ignorance here, and of course it's not in our ballpark, because we are dealing with history, and as soon as you start reading the history, your head just explodes, because there's so much to get into. I just want to do a bit of a hats off, really, though, to the lead archaeologist on this project, Holly Pittman, out of Pennsylvania University, whose passion, I think, must have driven this, because it really takes something from somebody from another country to get all the permissions and organise the team to be able to do such an excavation in a foreign country like this. And this is after the Iran-Iraq war, put a kibosh on so much of what was going on there. And it was Holly Pittman, I think, my perception is Holly Pittman was responsible for getting things going again in that regard. So hats off to her and people like her, whose drive and enthusiasm keep these things going in archaeology. Yeah, that was
well
it,
said,
really.
Sir. Well said.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we will draw an end to that. I hope that's been exciting and informative. If you're looking for a way to help support Rupert and I carry on doing this stuff we do, then the answer is in the description below. 2 ways: a Patreon page for a monthly subscription, and also if you'd like to support us as a one-off thing, look at our Buy Me a Coffee campaign, because we've got a project developing to create a wonderful series about the story of the Neolithic, right from the Mesopotamia and the Fertile Crescent right up to the Wiltshire Plain and Stonehenge, called Göbekli Tepe to Stonehenge. We're looking for help funding that project. We've got off to a great start, still need more help. Look in the link before. That's it. I'll say no more about that. Thanks for watching. It's bye-bye from me.
Cheers, folks. And goodbye from me. See you soon.
Bye-bye.